In 2002, Japan was rocked by a horrific discovery at a Tokyo train station. One of the carriages caught fire due to an electrical fault, and passengers were forced to leave the train in a hurry. A few hours later, when authorities began to sort through the luggage of panicked passengers, they found something terrible in one of the bags. Teen amputee girl packed in plastic with small holes for breathing. Her vocal cords were removed to prevent her from screaming. It was striking that there were no signs of violence on it. Her health was not in danger. Her body was mangled, but in good condition. The girl was wrapped in the same plastic that is used to package toys. On the package with the girl inside, the number 72 was written in marker. In the same bag was a notepad with a list of her allergies, a monthly calendar, and other information related to the girl's health. The police tried to get information from the girl about the persons who did this to her, but their attempts were to no avail. She could neither speak nor write and had no other communication skills. 6 years later, the now 20-year-old woman was finally able to share the events of her past. The woman's name was Kikumi Tatora. She had been missing since 1999. Her parents thought she was dead. Kikumi said that a stranger said that her parents had sent to pick her up, and she got into his car. The man closed her eyes and splashed something in her face, after which she lost consciousness. She came to herself in a large, brightly lit white room in a locked cage with 2 other girls. There was an operating table in the center of the room. Behind him, a man in surgical clothing with an electric saw in his hand was preparing to cut off the leg of the girl lying in front of him. One of her legs had been amputated previously, and her arm, judging by the bandages, had been amputated quite recently. The worst thing for Kikumi was that along the far wall she saw girls lying down who had already undergone surgery. Even though they weren't moving, they were breathing and blinking. After what she saw, Kikumi lost consciousness. She came to herself on the bed to which she was tied. To her horror, she could not utter a word. She tried to scream to no avail and could not feel the fingers on one of her hands. Her left arm was cut off and the stump was carefully sewn shut. She is not alone in the room. The girls lying there have had 1 to 3 limbs amputated. Everyone has no voice. Some of them are twitching, trying to free themselves from holding them in handcuffs and chains. Others simply look up and cry. Everything is in complete silence. Kikumi says she lost her sense of time quite quickly because they were drugged every day. Kikumi was fed 3 times a day, the shackles on her upper body were removed, and she was able to feed on the remaining hand. First she throws the food on the floor, then picks it up from there and starts eating. Without being able to communicate with anyone, and without seeing anyone, apart from the other girls, she begins to lose her sanity. She doesn't know the current time of day, her captors, or their purpose. Every now and then, one of the girls disappears, soon returning with 1 less limb. Even though the gap between amputations must be several weeks, we have lost track of time. After losing her last limb, her left leg, she was moved to what is called a showroom. While in the new premises, she still lies in her bed. The hall has a round shape and clean air. There are platforms along the walls with beds with girls on them. There's a note next to each one. In the center is an operating table with instruments. Next to it is a cage, empty at that time. For the first time since her time as a prisoner, she sees her captor face to face. This is an elderly man with a gray beard. She sees compassion on his face. He looks like a typical grandfather. There is not a drop of evil in his eyes. He removes the shackles holding her, and she tries to bite him. Apparently, he was ready for this. He pushes her back onto the bed and attaches a metal plate to her back, attached by some kind of mechanism to the back of her head and pelvis. Unbeknownst to Kikumi, there were mounts implanted into her skull and back in conjunction with a plate, depriving her last chance to move. The man brought a shield about 1.5 meters long with fastenings and to thickenings. He picked up Kikumi and placed her on the shield, securing her plate. The shield with the girl attached was hung on the wall. The elderly man left the room, turning off the lights in the hall. Kikumi says that the first night was a real nightmare. From all sides, she was surrounded by the sounds of blinking eyelashes, more frightening than the loudest scream. She stays awake for days before she manages to fall asleep. After waking up, her face is illuminated, but there is no one emanating not nearby. The rest of the girls have makeup on their faces. They are arranged in order of age from youngest to oldest. She realized that they had been collecting them for quite some time. They all look like typical Japanese women with long dark hair and fair skin. A man returns to the hall with a bottle with something liquid inside. He approaches each of them in turn and pours the contents into their mouths. After this, he makes another circle, this time giving them water, and another one checks the condition of the body. The fourth time, he simply admires his collection, straightens someone's hair, or powders it. 3 girls are selected from time to time. Their left arms and their last limbs are cut off. They wrap it in plastic, hide it in a box, and take it away. When it's her turn, the number 72 is written on her plastic. Through her box, she hears the sound of a motor, then other people. In a few hours, they will find her. A few years later, her kidnapper will be caught, who will die unexpectedly and inexplicably. The premises containing the remaining victims will never be found. Every year, several tens of thousands of people disappear in Japan. 70% of them are underage girls.